The more I thought, what could it be that we all shared in that workshop trying to get tips on how to find work, the more my mind kept going toward a book that I read a while back. It was written by an author by the name of Jane Jacobs, who wrote a series of novels and essays about the urban condition, cities in specific, in the 20th and 21st century. And that particular book was called Dark Age Ahead. And it is exactly how it sounds. She proposed that North American culture and civilization as we understood it was in danger of going down a spiral very similar to what happened with the Roman Empire and the Dark Age that followed in Europe during that time. That meant that all of the sciences and all the mathematics and all of the culture and the arts and the music, that everything that we gained during that grand time of the Roman Empire was lost. We descended into states of feudalism, and people couldn't even take care of themselves because the support systems were completely gone. You want to know something? I'm not too sure if we are really headed into a dark age. Again, it sounds like alarmist thinking, it sounds like paranoid thinking, but at the same time, she may have a point. I would like to focus on some of the pillars that Ms. Jacobs mentioned in her book that were crumbling, that we relied on, but we can't seem to rely on anymore because they're falling apart. These columns that she mentioned was community and family, higher education, science and technology, taxes and government responsible for citizens' needs, and self-policing of the learned professions. So let's go into these pillars that she brought up. Government, first of all. How many times have you wondered, watching TV or reading the newspaper, what the hell are these politicians doing? We send a different batch of politicians to power to get rid of the old government that doesn't serve us, and what do? They, in essence, become just like the other guys that we wanted to get rid of. Politicians promise openness, transparency, honesty, integrity, and once they get into office, they completely do a 180, and they do exactly the same thing as the guys that we want to get rid of. They raise our taxes up and up and up and up and up, but we don't see any improvement in roads, hospitals, even at the municipal level, for example. I don't see any improvement in the transit system or the roads or the sanitation or even the electrical system in the city, yet people seem to pay more and more for user fees and property taxes going up and up and up. Let's talk about corporations, which is one of the pillars that she mentioned. Corporations used to provide quality goods, quality services with every passing year. As things got better, since the start of the Industrial Revolution, we were getting better and better products. Stuff was made to last. It was not unusual back in my parents' time to have a TV set that lasted like 25 years. It was not unusual to have a pair of jeans that lasted you at least 5 or even 10 years. Now, you're lucky if you can get a computer or a plasma screen that will last 5 years, and the clothes that you get that have the very expensive designer label on it, they fall apart after a few years of wear and tear. And you know, companies are going through downsizing. Companies are going through restructurings, and you know this for a fact because you used to work with 3 people or maybe more people. Let's call them Fred and Betty and Ahmed. And they worked in the same office as you, or the same warehouse as you, and they were laid off. And part of the restructuring and downsizing. Well, they may be laid off, but their job descriptions still remain, and you're the unfortunate sucker who has to do their job for less money and no thanks for the hard work and overtime that you now have to put in to make the ends meet that these 3 people used to handle. In other words, you're being asked by this corporation to do more with less, to sacrifice your personal time with your family, your spouse, your friends, the hobbies and the interests that you used to pursue. In other words, your work is very swiftly becoming your life until, of course, you're laid off and you're in the sorry situation that I'm in right now. And now you're stressed out, and now you're angry, and you're overworked and underappreciated, and you just realize on your way home from work that you have to go to the grocery store to pick up some food, some milk, or maybe you have to go to Future Shop or Best Buy to get some batteries or whatever. And you go into the store and you get your stuff and you go back out and you see 10 cash registers, but only 5 people happen to be manning them. And you're wondering, well, what the hell's going on? I mean, why do you have 10 cash registers but only 5 employees on service? Well, it's the same situation as your job. Companies, instead of improving their profits by making better and better products that last and people are happy to buy, they have instead cut their costs. And let's talk about another pillar that Ms. Jacobs is making reference to, the one that she feels is crumbling. Let's talk about our education system, for example. Have you wondered, for example, why Jeannie or Johnny doesn't know how to do their multiplication tables anymore? At least not without running to a calculator or their personal computer. And on the subject of personal computers in classrooms, it's nice that they know how to use a computer and go on the internet and use social media, but ask them to write a simple note or a letter, and they can't do it because the art of handwriting is gone. Let's also talk about history. Your children seem to know more about the history of their favorite comic book or their favorite video game or TV show, but ask them about the history of their city or the country that they live in. They don't know anything about the history. They think it's boring. They think it's dull. Some kids nowadays, they can't even identify where a certain country is on a globe unless you actually point it out. That used to be a requirement back in my time, but not in their time. It doesn't seem to matter. Why not? Just look it up on Google. Go to the ultimate gimme machine, that is the internet, and you can get the answer just by asking for it rather than trying to figure it out yourself. And on the subject of education further, never mind the fact that it's not working, it's not even affordable anymore, at least not post-secondary education. I mean, it used to be in my time when I was growing up, you can go spend a few $1,000s to get a college education, and through the co-op training program, you can get a job by a company. Our children nowadays, they go all the way to like 3 or 4 years of university. They have a degree. They graduate at the top of their class. They can't find a job in their chosen field, and they paid all this money, and they have an OSAP loan or some sort of government loan that they have to pay off, and they've got no job. So not only are they frustrated because they don't have a job, they're frustrated because they have a mountain of debt that they have to pay off, but they can't because they got no job. So now you're asking yourself, okay, I've heard David talk about how the government's not working, how corporations and businesses are not working the way they used to, and how our education system is not delivering the proper teachings to our young people. What is what he's saying have anything to do with unemployment and the plight of those who are trying to find work, such as myself? Remember 2 things that I mentioned before. I sat at a workshop in a room full of people that was represented by all walks of life, not just a certain segment, but all walks of life, all of which are trying to find a job. And I was wondering what it was that connected us, that had us in the same room together on that day. Remember also that I mentioned Jane Jacobs' book, Dark Age Ahead. And she proposed if the foundations that hold up a stable and strong civilization begin to crumble, you start to see things fall through the cracks. You start to see symptoms of malaise and de-evolution of what we used to believe in begin to happen. It is my belief, through my own sharing of my job search, frustrations and trials and tribulations, that the reason why this particular situation that we're in is so much different than the other past recessions is because the foundations have in fact started to crumble, and that the pieces that used to fit together so well, like a very complex puzzle or machine that is our society, is no longer fitting together. They've started to fail. This is the reason why I'm doing the video series. I'm trying to point out to you that my frustrations and my barriers and the hurdles that I'm trying to get through in order to find work are the result of people like me falling through the cracks, because these particular pieces, government, education, and business, are no longer working together. I propose on my blog at davidallengay.wordpress.com a new way of working between these three organizations, where government and businesses and education work together to ensure that there are no such thing as labor shortages, that we have our young people prepared with skills as young as 12 or 13 years old to get into the workplace, either as a part of a company or maybe to start their own business as new captains of industry of the future. The pieces that currently operate right now are in a vacuum. They operate with their own agenda and their own interests, and that is actually working against the interests of people like myself who simply want to be employed. That is why this video series is here and why I am sharing my words and my experiences with you today. And with that, it's the end of the episode. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch it, and I wish you a good day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye for now.